Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, May 16, 2025, time in Texas, about 3 p.m. Some of the sources I'll use today: God in the Bible, Patriot subscribers, Hal Turner, BORZIKKMAN, JUAN, Alex MERCOURIS, Dr. William Mount Plus. And some of the things we'll cover: eggs, $25 a dozen. Say it isn't so. COMEY-86 47. And the Russian summer offensive, 250,000 troops, and what has happened today in the peace talks between the U.S., Turkey mediating Ukraine and Russia that took place in Turkey today. So let's get started. First, I went grocery shopping this morning, and I went to a local store located in South Texas where I live, Kroger, which is a national grocery chain, has about 3,000 locations in 35 states. And to my shock, eggs this morning per dozen were $17.49. And I talked to some of the store employees, and they said you should buy now because in 2 to 3 weeks, they're likely to be $25 a dozen, going up about 40%, as will everything else in the store. This is a result of the tariffs and the break in our supply chain, which will last about 1 month. So it appears in 2 to 3 weeks, we can generally see grocery prices going up, possibly as much as 40%, and remaining at that level for 1 month to 6 weeks until the supply chain is restored, because we know many nations are making agreements with President Trump. This is in the best interest of America to balance our trade with foreign nations so that it's fair to America. And it will bring in a lot of money to the federal government, which will lead to, according to President Trump's plan, cutting income taxes for American citizens. So it's good to possibly stock up now, and then we will see a lowering of our prices in 4 to 6 weeks at the grocery store. But yeah, that's a shocker, and I understand many people now, if they have a yard, are just buying their own chickens and obtaining their own eggs. So that's going on. And we know that China and the cartels are the #1 enemy of the United States of America right now. And we have this, that going on. So we saw on Instagram this morning from Comey. He was a former director of the FBI and the orchestrator of Russiagate. And he claims he was just out for his morning beach walk, and he saw on the beach, outlined in seashells, 8647, which he posted on Instagram. And there was so much outcry, he then took it down. He made a statement. Oh, I didn't know that 8647 had any embedded meaning. Oh, and I'm against violence, even though my direct ancestors had pretty high positions in World War II Germany. So we've got this to say to Comey, shut up. Now what this means in Mafia Talk 86, go out 8 miles into the ocean and take that individual and put them 6 feet down. 86, do away with. And our current president is number 47. The average American citizen believes that, now, do we actually believe Comey took seashells and made the outline? No, even he says, oh, I just came across it and I thought it was interesting, so I took a picture of it and put it on my Instagram. Once again, Comey does himself in. 8647, I submit, was put forth by Comey, a leader of the deep state, and it means just what we interpret it to mean, do away with President Trump. So Comey is now under investigation by Homeland Security and the current FBI led by President Trump's FBI Director, Kash Patel. So that's going on. Yeah, I didn't know it meant something, says Comey. Shut up, Comey. We, the American people, can see through this immediately. So that's going on. And now, Adapt 2030 and other sources and my own background. So Adapt 2030 is talking about we do have impacts on the Earth from space. And this has been going on for years. And our electromagnetic shield, I've been looking at for 30 years, has been diminishing. And my research coincides with the research of Adapt 2030. It is a cycle that happens. Adapt 2030 is putting out 400 years. I tend to agree more with Ben Davidson of Suspicious Observers and BPEARTHWATCH that it's a 6,000 to 13,000 year cycle, but something from space impacting the Earth on a cyclic basis, which does impact our climate. And we have been seeing for the past at least 10 years, we can see demonstrated decreases in global crops. So we could expect to see an increase in food prices, which is what we're seeing. He also puts forth that we do have holes in our electromagnetic shield that is letting in solar wind that could be impacting power grids, like the recent blackouts we've seen in Cuba, Puerto Rico, Spain, Portugal. I submit that we are having space impacts upon our weather and upon our shield over the Earth. I agree with that, but I believe these blackouts are also being juiced up by Trojan horse devices sold by the CCP, China, and put in both U.S. and European power grids. So I think it's a combination of both space impact and Trojan Chinese CCP devices embedded in our power grid, a plan by the evil and corrupt CCP to take down the U.S. and European power grids. So that's going on. And now we have this from Redacted. President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico on board in protecting the cartels. It's been discovered, mass graves have been discovered along the border, some containing 1,700 up to 1,700 bodies, and that there are indeed extermination camps inside Mexico where the cartels routinely round up citizens, government employees, judges, and take them to extermination camps and just do away with them. And all the while, they're protected by Sheinbaum. So that's going on. And now we have this. So we've had a fiasco meeting, supposedly to discuss peace in Ukraine. So we've got Russia, Ukraine, we have Hungary, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. Now, the last week, we see Hungary putting their troops and tanks on the border with Ukraine. It's believed that Hungary has been given the okay by President Putin to annex Transcarpathia. This was a part of Hungary until about World War II. The people here speak the Hungarian language. They are culturally Hungarians. And so that's been actually in the last 48 hours. We've seen Hungary put their troops and tanks here. And then in the past 24 hours, Ukraine sent in 2 recon drones to the border of Hungary and Ukraine, and Hungary shot both of them down. So we see Hungary on the offense against Ukraine. Now, recently we had an incident, and also in the last 48 hours, there was a Russian oil tanker in international waters, and the report came out that Estonia tried to take over the oil tanker. Estonia had a ship in this area, and they were trying to ram the Russian oil tanker, and that there were helicopters with armed troops who tried to get on the oil tanker twice. There was also a military type plane in that area. Initially, the reports were it was Estonia only who was trying to take over the Russian oil tanker. Now it comes out these helicopters and armed troops and the plane were from the military of Poland. So we see Poland and Estonia engaging in an active war against Russia, trying to take over an oil tanker in international waters. So we see things going on. And now, in the meetings today in Turkey, I'll go over a little bit of what. So in Turkey today, there were supposed to be meetings that actually were supposed to take place yesterday, Thursday, but the Ukrainian representatives were disorganized. The meeting was supposed to be Thursday at 10 a.m., then it was postponed to 2 p.m., then 6 p.m., then canceled entirely. There were meetings today that involved Turkey as a mediator, the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. In different meetings with different working parts. Now, initially, there was a meeting that lasted about 2 hours, about 11 to 1 or so, between Ukraine and Russia. Russia put forth they wanted Ukraine to agree that Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson were part of Russia. Ukraine refused. The Russian delegation then stood up and said next time it's going to be 5 regions. The meetings were then later reorganized and convened again. There was this morning also a meeting between U.S. and Russia. So that's going on. The lead for the U.S. group was President Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. So now we have also some agreements that did take place between Ukraine and Russia. And that is that Ukraine and Russia will agree to future talks and prisoner exchange. So that's going on. And you might ask, where was Zelensky during this time? Zelensky did not go to the meeting in Istanbul, Turkey. Instead, he flew Thursday to Ankara, Turkey, to meet with Erdogan. Then he left Thursday to go to a European economic meeting in Albania. So that's going on. And Russia also put forth that Ukraine is to withdraw its troops completely from Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson before discussions can take place about a future ceasefire. So that's going on. And it's being put forth. Ukraine, as part of the agreements this afternoon between the multiple groups and Turkey, Ukraine requests a future meeting between President Trump and President Putin to discuss a ceasefire. So that's going on. And we have this, what's going on now with Russia and Ukraine is that Russia has designated a new general in charge of the ground troops in Ukraine, and that Russia is currently putting together their summer offensive against Ukraine, and their army will include 250,000 troops, Russian troops. And today, Russia talks about crossing in Ukraine. So we have Ukraine, we have Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, Odessa. We have these areas. We have the Dnipro River. And we have other locations on the other side of the river. Mykolaiv. And Odessa. So Mykolaiv and Odessa. Odessa is the primary port location for Ukraine to the Black Sea. It's believed that Russia intends to take Mykolaiv on the west side of the Dnipro River plus Odessa. BORZIKKMAN reports that Ukraine In the last month or so, it sold a port in Odessa to the UK. The UK then brought in a ship loaded with weapons, which Russia sank this morning. So that's going on. And we have this. President Trump and the U.S. have requested NATO for the next NATO meeting not to invite Ukraine. So that's going on. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.